With the Iowa Lottery's new Millionaire for Life game, you could win $1 million a year for life. That could make you a My Dream Job is No Job millionaire. Front row tickets to every show millionaire. Hire a personal glam squad for you and your bestie millionaire.
Yep, a little further.
Or just to never run out of your favorite pickles millionaire. With Millionaire for Life from the Iowa Lottery,
And these.
you can change your life for life. Play today.
The biggest party of the year is here. Zach Brown Band Love and Fear Tour, presented by Margaritaville at Sea. Friday, November 20th, KC Center. Zach Brown Band. With special guest, Grace Potter. Tickets are on sale now at ZachBrownBand.com.
And a little bit of chicken fried.
Don't miss Zach Brown Band Love and Fear live.
Jake Brend and Derek Duke break down everything you need to know throughout the Big 12. This is Bigger Than 12, presented by Wealth Charter Retirement Planning and Tax. From the Channel Seed Studios, this is Bigger Than 12 on Iowa Everywhere.
Welcome into the Channel Seed Studios for Bigger Than 12. Ahead of the Sweet 16. I'm Jake Brand, how sweet it is, joined by Derek Duke down in Texas. How we doing, Duke?
Doing good, man. You just got back from St. Louis. What a weekend. I can't even say it's a beautiful city. I've been there a couple times. I have no plan on going back. But if you had a reason to go back, this past weekend would have been the reason to go back to St. Louis 100%.
I don't mind it. There's something I like about these old river cities, historic. It's certainly not the nicest place in the world, but there's character to it, which I like.
The only place in the world or in the United States where I've been to where an entire block was shut down because they were afraid a building was going to collapse. Which I've never seen that before, and I've never seen that since. So it does have a little... You're right on historic, yeah.
Every building's got to fall down eventually, right?
Yeah, why not close the whole block for it, just in case it falls on top of you, right?
Yeah, no kidding. Well, back now from St. Louis, I'll be heading back to Chicago, and not that long. I'll get 2 sleeps back here in Iowa and then head right back on the road to cover the Cyclones. We are recording this Monday, the 23rd of March. This will be in your feeds Tuesday morning, so keep in mind if there's any breaking news in between those periods. We're recording this early Monday evening. And since you're not going to be listening to this until Tuesday, it didn't make sense to me, at least, to react to all the games from the weekend. It felt like that's old news. People are already on to the Sweet 16, onto the second weekend. And if their team didn't make it, then they're already doing their report cards, judging their season. So we're going to start by just previewing the Sweet 16. Seems like the most timely thing. And it's all brought to you by Wealth Charter Retirement Planning and Tax. We are less than a month away from tax day, which is not ideal if you haven't started yet. If you haven't started yet, give Tim Hawkins and his team a call at wealthcharterretirement.com. See if they can squeeze you in. If not, absolutely use their retirement planning, all of their financial planning. Wealth Charter does great work up here in Ankeny. They're locally owned, and they've been doing their business for over 25 years. Visit wealthcharterretirement.com. Let's start in Chicago, as Iowa State will take on Tennessee on Friday night at 9:10 on TBS, as the Cyclones look to punch their ticket to their first Elite Eight in over 25 years. The status of Joshua Jefferson is well up in the air, but they get the 6th seed Tennessee, who's a good team, athletic, long, they can rebound. Derek, what do you envision this matchup being like for Iowa State?
I think you got to start with the status of Joshua Jefferson. You know, when he went down the other night against Tennessee State, it's almost like you just feel that pit inside of your stomach, and you're just like, oh boy, it was too good to be true. It can't go like this. And, of course, a lot of the Iowa State fans were reminded of 2014 and how that whole situation played out. I wasn't around back then, but if it was a similar feeling to what I felt on Thursday, that was a absolutely sickening feeling. And then, of course, you find out it's probably not as bad as we all thought it was going to be. So, of course, his status is going to be, I guess, in question until tip-off time, I imagine. I don't know if he's going to play or not. The good news is, even if he doesn't play, I think there were a lot of encouraging signs against Kentucky. Yeah, you had the slow start. And Kentucky, I mean, let's be real. Kentucky was shooting lights out at some point in that game. In the first half, they were shooting the ball from three way higher than their season average. So I did not see that coming. But when Iowa State was on, they just flipped that switch. And defensively is probably what I was most impressed with. You forced 20 turnovers against Kentucky, which I believe was their season high by far. Turn it into 25 points on the other side. You're able to turn that defense into offense, and I've always said that's when Iowa State is just at their best. So if they're able to do that against Tennessee, that's going to be the key for that game. And, of course, you had Lipsey and Milan stepping up their game even more than usual. So not only that, I think having Nate Heisey, or Heisey as the broadcast like to call it,
Heisey,
Killian Torrey stepping up, those two made a huge difference in that ball game. Obviously the focus is going to be on Milan and Tamin, but those two really made a difference in that ball game. I felt like that's kind of what put Iowa State over the top. And if those two are able to have a similar game like they did against Kentucky, against Tennessee, I mean, to me, and this is maybe crazy to say, it doesn't matter if Joshua Jefferson's on the floor or not, because I think Iowa State can win the game without him if they can get some help from the back end.
Yeah, I think a lot of this just comes down to the toughness, and Iowa State has proven to be the toughest team in both games they've played in the NCAA tournament, and it hasn't even been close. They made Kentucky quit. I don't think they're going to make Tennessee quit. I think that team has a lot more pride. I think that team plays for the front of the jersey a lot more than Kentucky does. But they're also still an SEC team that underachieved compared to their preseason expectations and haven't been as good as they've been in the past. They've been a 2 seed a lot under Rick Barnes, and they haven't. It's a crazy stat, but Rick Barnes at Tennessee hasn't beaten a seed higher than him yet. So they almost always get to where they're supposed to, but they never really get above where they're supposed to, and also never really finish below that level. So based off of seeding, I mean, that is until Sunday, until he hadn't beat a seed higher than him. Based off of history, it tells you that Tennessee has maxed out. However, I think all it comes down to Iowa State. It comes down to them being the tougher team. Whether Joshua Jefferson plays, whether he is 60%, whether he doesn't play, it's going to be a massive challenge on the offensive glass. Tennessee's the number 1 offensive rebounding team in the country. What I like is that Blake Buchanan has been pretty good against great competition. I feel like his best games have all come against Arizona, against Houston, against Kansas, when you've got Badunga, JoJo Tugler, Krivas, and all 27 of Arizona's big men down low. Feels like he's really risen to the occasion, and you absolutely know what TJ Otzelberger's message to Buchanan and Plata will be all week. It's that, hey guys, even if Jefferson can go, he's probably not going to be perfect. And those two, Buchanan, Plata, and then Heisey and all the guards are going to have to really step up on the glass and keep Tennessee off the glass, because that's going to be their strategy.
Yep.
They turn the ball over a lot. And I could see them kind of just chucking and be like, you know what? It's better if we chuck up a bad shot and try and go for the offensive rebound than risk turning it over and let Iowa State turn that into points. So it'll come down to Iowa State controlling the glass. If they do that, I really like Iowa State's chances with or without Jefferson on the floor.
Yeah, I believe Tennessee was only behind Florida in terms of rebounding the ball, which Florida, I think, is the best team in the entire country when it comes to that. But you're right. Keeping Tennessee off the glass is going to be key. Also, stopping a Jacoby Gillespie. He really makes that team go just all around, from assist, scoring, whatever, you name it. He's able to do that. He's the guy that really makes that offense tick. So if they can slow him down, I think they'll be okay. Also, I got to mention, we were talking about Tamin Lipsey there. I got to make him my monster beast of the week.
Beast of the week.
When Iowa State needed a hero the most on on Sunday against Kentucky, Tamin Lipsey just stepped his game up another notch. 26 points, 10 assists, 5 steals. It seemed like every single time Kentucky was going down the floor on the other end, Tamin Lipsey was taking the ball away and taking it for 2. So he was just incredible on Sunday. He's going to be the key to the machine of the Iowa State offense. Obviously, we've talked about him all season long, one of the best point guards in the entire country. And he, again, is going to be the focus for me, at least on Friday. He's going to have another monster performance if Iowa State is going to get past Tennessee on Friday. So, really looking forward to seeing what he can do. And like I said, he is just a beast of a player. And what I love about him the most, no matter what, if he's having a good shooting night, bad shooting night, whatever it is, that guy gives maximum effort every time he steps on the floor, and I always appreciate that.
You can never, ever question his intensity, his heart, his will, and that's what makes you feel good about this game. It's what makes you feel good about this spot, being in Chicago. There's going to be a very large contingent of Iowa State fans, and I can't wait to meet and see a lot of you. You like Lipsey's battle scars. Like, his first tournament game, they had probably the worst performance in school history. That game where they lost against Pitt, it was pitiful, no pun intended. And Lipsey took that hard. Teams sagged off of him that day, and that made offense really difficult for everyone else on the floor. That Illinois loss was really brutal. That was a heartbreaker for that locker room. Last year was a really tough end of the season. He's been through this storm. He knows what it takes to win in March, and that can't be displayed any better than what it looked like on Sunday against Kentucky. He willed Iowa State back in that game. They were down 18-6, couldn't buy a bucket, and he decided, you know what? We're not going to play defense. We're going to take the ball from them. We're not going to play basketball. I'm going to go get the ball, and I'm going to go the other way, and I'm going to find a way to get this game back in reach, and that's exactly what he did. It's those intangibles that make him a very, very deserving beast of the week.
TJ called him the best point guard in the country after the game the other night. So, and I really
it's hard to argue.
That. Yeah, it's hard to argue against for sure.
Iowa State's one of 3 teams in the Big 12 that advanced to the Sweet 16. The other being Arizona and Houston. Let's get into Arizona. And man, if I have to rank all of the Sweet 16 matchups, Arizona, Arkansas might be my number 1. Like this game is going to have it all. Arkansas is one of the hottest teams in the country. They've got maybe the best offensive player in the country.
Oh, yeah.
In Darius Acuff. He is unbelievable. And they're playing well. They're coached well by a legend of the game, John Calipari. And Arizona has all the pressure. They don't care if they make a Sweet 16. They don't care if they make an Elite 8. They barely care if they make a Final Four. They want to go further, but they have to get to a Final Four with this team. Tommy Lloyd has to do it for that fan base, and it's a really tough spot. I think this game is tougher than whoever they could meet in the Elite Eight, whether that's Purdue or Texas. I think they've got all they can handle in Arkansas, and they're going to have to play really well, and they're going to have to play better than they did against Utah State because they let the Aggies hang around and make that a game late when I did not expect that whatsoever.
Yeah, I think you're right. The first thing they got to do there is slow down Darius Acuff. He is one of the best players in the entire country, and damn, I was watching him the other night. He is just so fun to watch, and again, he is the key, the engine to that offense for Arkansas. So you got to really make somebody else on that Arkansas team beat you. They do have a couple weapons offensively, but if you could slow Darius down a little bit, I do like Arizona's chances. The other thing is, too, I think Arizona has the big advantage on the glass, too. Arkansas is not a great rebounding team by any means, so I think Arizona can win there. Your big 3 between Bradley, Pete, Barries, you got to have big games from at least two out of those 3, and then if you have somebody else stepping up, Krivas, Orso, Owaka, whoever it may be, you're going to need kind of somebody else to chip in. The one thing I do find interesting in this matchup, out of all the matchups we're talking about here, you kind of look at the paths for both of these teams. I mean, Arkansas beating Hawaii and High Point to get to this point, and then Arizona obviously just fresh off a win against Utah State. So for me and Long Island, so I don't really feel like either team. I mean, Arkansas obviously they're not going to see a single team like they have against Arizona. Like their competition level is about to ramp up to another level that they haven't seen probably since the SEC tournament or maybe even before that. So I really like where Arizona is, and I'm kind of glad they got tested a little bit against Utah State. Obviously we do want them to win by 50, but sometimes it's kind of good to get a little kick in the butt every now and then before you're going to be playing a big team like Arkansas.
Yeah, that's a good point. There's a lot of intangibles about this matchup that I like. And Arkansas is really hot. There's no doubt about it. But they didn't exactly roll past High Point either. They were in a game late with High Point, and that they're one of the most fun teams that made the tournament, in my opinion. They were a blast to watch. And I do think there is a legit SEC conversation on how good was this league. I don't think it was as good as people thought. I don't think it was as good as the committee thought. You saw a lot of SEC teams go out early.
Florida.
Alabama, of course, moves on. We'll talk about Tech here in a little bit, but they demolished a depleted Tech team who doesn't have their best player, who doesn't have their first team All-American, Big 12 Player of the Year caliber player. And Arkansas looked great, but they beat a 13 seed and a 12 seed. That doesn't tell the entire story. So I don't necessarily think Arkansas is coming into this game playing like they're the best team in the country. Like I know they've won 6 games in a row. I know they're scorching hot. Arizona's still better, and this is going to come down to Arizona being tough down low. It's on Krivas, it's on Awaka, it's on Koa Pete. Take this game over. If there is one major edge that you have in this game for Arizona, it's what you got down on the block. And that's how you can counter what Darius Acuff is going to do on the offensive end. Go down low. Jaden Bradley, get your body into him. Acuff is one of the worst defenders in the country. Like if he was an average defender, he's probably the number 2 or 3 pick in the draft. The reason he's being talked in that 5, 6, 8 range is because he can't defend. Like his defensive rating this year at Arkansas is worse than what Trae Young had at Oklahoma, and that was Trae Young's biggest knock. So maybe that's how you can wear Arkansas out, is continuously get Acuff in switches, get him downhill, and we all know how physical Arizona's guards are. They put your body into you, and it doesn't matter if you play perfect defense. We all know that with Jaden Bradley, what he did to Killian Torrey. He can absolutely dice up Acuff if he gets the chance, and that's where I like this matchup for Arizona.
And that's where I'm curious to see if they can really slow him down, because make no mistake about it, Acuff is the best offensive player on the floor, bar none. He is the best offensive player on the floor. However, Arizona, from top to bottom, is by far got the better starting 5, and I don't think it's really that close, to be honest with you. So it's going to take a team effort to beat Arkansas, and hey, I think they can do it. I don't know how much I'm going to sweat this one. I'd be a little nervous if I was Arizona, but again, you come in, you're the better team. If you play your B game, you don't even have to play your A game. If you play your B-plus game, I think you'll be fine here and get past Arkansas.
Yeah, and then a potential matchup with Purdue, they're playing well. They're another team that's hot. But we saw what Iowa State did to Purdue earlier in this year. We've seen Purdue struggle with those physical teams. I don't hate that matchup for Arizona if they can get there. But you've got to get past Arkansas first, and we know the demons that Arizona has. There's a reason their fans are paranoid. There's a reason their fans are demanding a deep run this year in March. And for some fan bases, a Sweet 16 is a deep run. For that fan base, it's absolutely not. And they've got some work to do in order to get to their first Final Four in a long time, well over 20 years.
They'll do it.
Houston, this team gets quite the draw. They are invited to the Big Ten West Invitational with Iowa, Nebraska, and Illinois. They'll get Illinois Thursday night in Houston. And it's a weird matchup because Illinois has just broken KenPom. They're one of the best offenses in the history of that website. They shoot so many threes.
Yeah.
They get a lot of offensive rebounds. That is their offense. They essentially rely on, we are just going to shoot so many threes, get the misses, put up more threes. Do you really want to try that against Kelvin Sampson? Do you really want to make this a rebounding war against Kelvin Sampson? And that's with the crowd advantage and that advantage, it makes me like Houston in this matchup, and if they can get past Illinois, I definitely like them over whoever's on the other side of that bracket, whether that's Iowa or Nebraska.
I think it's got the potential to be just a classic shootout, not necessarily in scoring, but just jump shots all over the place. It wouldn't surprise me if we just saw a ton of points in this game. You're right about Illinois. They average, the second most points per game in the Big Ten. They shoot a ton of threes. And as we all know, of course, Houston loves their own to shoot a lot of jump shots as well. So expect a ton of jump shots in this game. Going to be curious to see who shoots the ball better. Hopefully it's going to be Houston. So my thing for Houston is going to be, we know Kingston Flemings is going to be there. We know he's going to give his effort. He's going to give his A game. We'll see if he's going to put up 20, 25 points. Who knows? Maybe even 30. But I still think you're going to need a big game from either Uzan or Emmanuel Sharp. Somebody else on that Houston team offensively is going to have to drop at least 15 to 20 for Houston to get past Illinois, for me at least, because I think Flemings, we've seen him have some off nights before here and there. Obviously, I think when the pressure's on, there's maybe nobody better in the Big 12, and when Flemings, especially in the last few minutes of the game. But I still think somebody else for Houston's going to have to step up offensively. Now, defensively, I think they'll be okay, because if Illinois, unless they're just shooting, 45 or 50% from three, I think Houston's going to be fine defensively. But I'm curious to see what that offense for Houston can do against Illinois.
The concern for me, you look at Iowa State and Houston, very similar defenses. Very similar. And there's a reason they both have that identity, that they both have a well-established identity that everyone in college basketball knows about. Illinois carved Iowa State up a couple of years ago in the tournament. They waited for the double. They knew it was going to come, and they hit that swing every single time, and it felt like they hit every single shot that night. What's another team that's given Iowa State troubles in the past? BYU. Another team, Texas Tech. Who has given Houston the most troubles of anybody? It's Texas Tech. Their offense is very similar to Illinois in that sense. And a lot of it does come down to shot luck. If you're shooting 33s, are you making 8 of them or are you making 14 of them? That very well can be the difference in this game, and that's what would make me worry as a Houston fan. However, it is almost impossible for me to pick against Kelvin Sampson in March, especially in their own backyard. The motivation that group has from last year, coming up one play short of winning a national championship, having a double-digit lead in the second half of that game. I like the intangibles for Houston, and I like their guards better than Illinois, despite Keaton Wagler is unbelievable. Illinois has some great players. They are an immensely talented roster, and Brad Underwood will have a good game plan. It's just, will he have a better game plan than Kelvin Sampson and not? I've been doing this long enough to not pick against Mr. Sampson.
No, and you're right. Unless if Illinois is shooting just lights out, that to me is going to be their chance to get in this game and win this game. They just got to shoot the ball at an absurd rate, which I don't know if they can do for 2 full halves against Houston's defense. But I guess we'll see. But you know what's funny? I'm actually going to be pretty close to Houston all weekend. You going to go? Well, what's funny is I'm actually going to Houston on Sunday, but it's not for college basketball.
What are you doing? You going to a rodeo or something?
No, the rodeo just ended in Houston, actually. That was quite memorable for a lot of reasons. But no, I'm going to be there for opening weekend for baseball.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, you told me that. Yeah. I'm going to be in Chicago for opening weekend, and I don't think I'm going to be able to go.
That sucks.
It sucks because they don't play Friday. So they play Thursday, Saturday, Sunday. And if there was a day I'd be able to go to a game, an afternoon game, it'd be Friday. Because Iowa State doesn't play until midnight that night. So I'd be able to go to Wrigley, come back, get showered, get ready, and be at the United Center like well in advance of the game. But they're off that day. So I'll be pretty preoccupied Thursday, absolutely, and then hopefully Saturday, Sunday as well.
Oh, if Iowa State had this tip-off time in Houston, they had a 9 o'clock tip-off time in Houston, I'd be there. 100% I'd be there.
Well, you'd have tickets. You wouldn't make it there.
I would go. What are you talking about?
No, you'd get tickets. You'd get too drunk. If the game is that late, there's no way that you'd be able to walk into that arena. No shot.
Somebody could wheelchair me, and I don't even care. I'm there. I wouldn't give a shit. Or I'll watch from the hospital. Either one. I'll be there in spirit.
That's good stuff. Well, a little early for this, but I suppose we got to get to Aiden Wyatt.
Wait,
Iowa trivia question.
You don't
I
have
do.
to.
Oh,
I
wait,
do want to bring
yeah.
up one thing. Since we're on the topic
Aiden.
of
Later.
we're just kicking Aiden right out of here. No, I'm going to focus here on my carbless, refreshing take of the week, and it's really just a whole take on the Big 12. You know, there's been some disappointing moments with BYU, TCU, UCF, whatever. However, there may just be 3 teams from the Big 12 in the Sweet 16. But I'm calling my shot right now. My bracket doesn't look like this, but I will say, actually it does. I believe it does. All three of these teams are going to be playing in the Final Four next weekend in Indy. Houston's going. Iowa State's going. Arizona's going. They are all going to make it.
Man.
We're going to have 3 teams in the Final Four.
Wouldn't that be something? And that's the counter to all of this. The Big Ten has 6 teams in the Sweet 16.
They do.
Might be 7.
They have a
I think
lot.
it's 7.
7 or 6. I can't remember.
It's a lot, and they've got one guaranteed team in the Elite 8. I think Michigan's pretty close to a guarantee. Purdue's pretty close to a guarantee.
Yeah.
Michigan State, Sparty against UConn will be a good game. Illinois has a puncher's chance against Houston. Like, the Big Ten very well could take over this tournament. Don't let that happen.
I do have one Big Ten team in the Final Four. You want to guess who that is?
Michigan State.
It is Michigan State.
Same here.
Yes, it is. I got Michigan State.
We might have the same Final Four.
I have Michigan State, Houston, Iowa State, Arizona.
We've got the exact same Final Four.
There we go.
Should have listened to us. I guess we got a lot of time before we'll be proven right with that.
We could be dead wrong by the end of this weekend.
Could you imagine, though? Could you imagine that Final Four? That'd be absolute cinema.
It'd be wonderful.
All right, Aiden. Get in here now.
Oh, now you guys are ready?
Yep. Now we want to talk to you.
Are you done moving yet?
I'd say 90% moved.
Okay, so you're close. You're
That
through the
last
worst of
10%
it.
is going to be brutal.
It
The last
probably
10%
is.
is my office. That's why I'm doing it from the kitchen.
Gotcha.
Okay.
That's why I can
All
hear
right.
the blender going.
Right.
Oh, God.
All right. Iowa State and Iowa both advanced to the Sweet 16. Derek, true or false? Has Iowa ever had 2 teams in the Sweet 16 in the same year?
I'm going to say yes. I'm going to say some combination of Iowa, Drake, Iowa State. One of those combinations have got to hit one year.
I'm going to say no, unless Iowa made it in 1966 whenever Drake made it. But I don't think that happened.
It is false. It's the first time.
Damn.
I knew it was the first time Iowa and Iowa State were both in the Sweet 16 at the same time, but
Yep. I would have guessed there would have been like a random year, like
That's what I
Derek said.
thought.
Like there was a random year where Drake and Iowa won.
Drake
or-
made it, yeah.
yeah, well,
Yeah.
you and I, their lone Sweet 16 came in 2009. I don't think either of the Iowa team. I know Iowa State wasn't in the tournament. I believe Iowa wasn't either. And then Drake's only Sweet 16, I think, was like 1966. Whenever they made their Final Four run.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that'd be the only chance, is if Iowa made it that year. But it sounds like that didn't happen.
Well, it
Trying to
happened this year.
find- Yeah.
I can't believe it happened this year.
Yeah, the
It's
closest
unbelievable.
that would have been Iowa made the Sweet 16 in 1970. So
Okay.
close, but no cigar.
And then, yeah, I mean, Iowa's last Sweet 16 came a year before Iowa State's last Elite Eight, so there was almost a crossover there, but not.
Yeah, a couple close calls.
That's what
Well,
I
it
was
happened
thinking.
this year.
That's what I was thinking. I thought, because Iowa State did in, 2000?
Yeah, 2000 was the
Yeah.
Elite Eight. They've been to
Yeah.
Iowa State's been to 8 Sweet 16s overall. I believe they've been to 6 this century.
It's pretty good.
Back to Yeah, 1 under Eustace, 1 under Hoiberg, 1 under Prohm, 3 under Otzberger. Pretty unbelievable. It's a good time to be an Iowa State fan. Wouldn't you say so?
It's a great time.
No, I'd say it's a good time to go to Whiskey River.
Looking for a good time? Thought so. Whiskey River is just the place. We've got the booze, the food, the vibe, and the amazing rooftop patio. The only thing missing is you. Whiskey River.
Whiskey River. If you weren't in St. Louis going to the NCAA tournament and you were sitting at home,
that was the place to be.
You're missing out.
Yep.
And it's not too late. If you're not going to Chicago this weekend, if you're deciding to watch from home, throw a change up and go to Whiskey River. Eat some great food, drink some cold beer. They've got so many TVs, so many big TVs. It's a great spot to catch a game. We love Whiskey River. Locations in Ankeny and Ames. It's always a good time, and they always bring us our power rankings. And for the first time this year, we're trimming our power rankings to 3 teams because there's only 3 teams left. So the criteria that I used was power rank the likelihood of these 3 teams to go win a national championship. Without further ado, I'm going Arizona 1. I'm going Iowa State 2. I think they're playing the second best. The Jefferson ankle thing, it definitely makes it a little more dicey. I still think they're playing better basketball than Houston right now. And then I go Houston 3, but I still think all 3 of these teams have a really good chance to win a national championship. What's really good mean in college basketball? For Iowa State, I'd throw it between, 5 and 10%, which is, really, really good odds. Same thing for Houston. They're probably somewhere right around that 5% chance. But Arizona's got to be up there north of a quarter chance. I'd give them a 30-40% chance on winning the tournament right now. And that's a really good spot to be for the Big 12, even if it hasn't been the complete and total conference showing. To have 3 teams of this caliber, it's really hard to rank them 1, 2, 3, because I do think the sky's the limit for all 3 of these groups.
Well, how do you think I feel? I picked all 3 of them to make the Final Four.
I did too.
That's true. You did. Mine is going to look just a little bit different here. I've got Arizona as my top spot. I have them winning it all. I've got them winning the national championship before the tournament started. Now with the tournament's underway, I have them at number 1. For me, I don't know if they have the easiest path to get there, but I feel really confident, like you said, if they play Arkansas this week, I feel good about that game. I feel good about them if they have to play Purdue. And then, of course, if I've got to put them head-to-head against Iowa State, I'd still lean Arizona just because top to bottom, I think they are the best team, not just in the Big 12. I think they're the best team in all of college basketball. I've got Houston at 2. Now, you could certainly make a case for Iowa State belonging at 2. However, with Florida out of the way, I feel a lot better about Houston's chances this tournament because, let's say, they beat Illinois. Then you get the winner of Nebraska and Iowa. I don't care who wins that game. Give me Houston in that game. I like them far much more than either one of those. And, you could run into Michigan State, Duke, whoever, maybe in the Final Four, but anything can happen. And like you said, who do you trust more as a head coach than Kelvin Sampson? Hard to pick anybody else but that guy right there. So for me, Houston, just because their path now I think is a little bit easier than Iowa State's, because even if Iowa State, they win, they beat Michigan or whoever, you still got to go through Arizona to play in the national championship game. So it's a little bit tougher for me. So that's why I got Houston at 2. But again, I've got all 3 of these teams going to the Final Four, going to Indy.
It's a really hard list to make.
Yes.
And, man, I really hope I really hope we can see all 3 in Indy. That'd be quite the spectacle at Lucas Oil Stadium. Well, we just talked about all 3 teams that are still in it. There are 5 Big 12 teams that got bounced and are not in it. There's also 2 teams that hired a coach since we last recorded, so we're going to get into all that right now. And we're just going to do like a little report card is kind of what I had in mind. Give a letter grade for the season. We'll break down how it ended. And we'll start with the Kansas Jayhawks as they lose on a buzzer beater against St. John's. Bill Self has had some interesting comments since on whether he'll be back or not next year. To me, my gut feeling says he won't be back. I think he's going to retire. It seems that way, which I would hate because this is not how you'd want Bill Self to go out. But Kansas has now missed the second weekend 4 years in a row, which doesn't happen in Lawrence.
Are you going to give him a grade?
C+.
Okay. I went with C. I mean, what did I tell you about Kansas? I told you they were not going to make it out of the opening weekend. I told you that. I just... The ending to that St. John's game, I just think summed up their season to a T. Just let him go right to the damn basket for an uncontested layup. And it just... That's how your season ends. And then between that shit, the Darius Peterson nonstop drama. Darren Peterson, sorry. Darren Peterson nonstop drama for weeks on end. Is he going to play over 30 minutes? Oh, I took him out so we can save him for the next game. It was so tiresome. And I know that probably aged Bill Self 10 years dealing with all that crap. And he's the guy that has health issues already on top of this. So it's like, I don't blame him for wanting to walk away. Kansas is a hard job. There's a lot of pressure. You have a lot of resources, don't get me wrong, but the pressure of that job can weigh on a man. So I don't blame him if he did step away. It would suck for me and suck for the Big 12 because the Big 12 is better with Bill Self in it coaching. So, and I love it. He speaks his mind on a lot of issues in college basketball. He's not afraid to say things. But at the same time, I wouldn't be shocked if he left at all. So I'm just going to go with a C here. And just not the way you want it in the season. This is a program that I feel like is just starting to slip behind. You mentioned, 4 straight years of not making it out of the opening weekend. That's absurd to me. This is a program that should be making a Sweet 16, Elite 8 appearance every year or two.
Let the record reflect that I picked St. John's in that game. I was playing a little game of devil's advocate. Ever heard of it?
I can't remember. We were talking about last week, and it's like I turned it into your conversation. You went from like shitting on Kansas.
I was
to
pessimistic
defending them.
about Kansas, and then I ended up. You were so pessimistic about. I mean, you made it sound like they're going to lose by 50. They lost on a buzzer beater to Slick Rick, the hottest team in the country. So I'm not all the way out on Kansas. I'm not all the way down on them either. But they are my Freedom Tire who needs a fix for the second week in a row. Freedom Tire locations in Des Moines, West Des Moines, Urbandale, Altoona, Ames. Quentin Crowner and his team do a great job. I know I just drove down to St. Louis. We'll be driving to Chicago, potentially driving to a place that starts with the letter I that I won't talk about. If you're doing all those trips as well, you got to hit up Freedom Tire. You don't want to be driving on I-80 on bad tires. You don't want to do it with a faulty engine either. You don't want to get stuck in certain parts of Chicago if your car breaks down. So be sure to get your routine oil change at Freedom Tire before you head out.
Oh.
So funny.
I'm just not even going to get into it. I'm sorry. Your car, if you were in the wrong part of Chicago, your car may be sitting on blocks. You might not have any tires. Then you'll definitely have to call Freedom Tire.
Yeah, I don't know if they do road service in Chicago. So be sure to go before. Yeah. Be sure to hit up Freedom Tire before you go. My Freedom Tire who needs a fix. One more year. One more year, Bill Self. I believe after all the criticism, after how I believe he's poorly managed the NIL era since winning a national championship, going and being the highest bidder to get Hunter Dickinson, to go get AJ Storr, to go get Rylan Griffin.
Ooh.
Those were misses. They were. They're great players. Hunter Dickinson probably gets too much hate compared to what he should get.
Well, he just shat all over Kansas the other day.
I know, and I don't blame him. His time there was bad. The culture wasn't right. It's taken an adjustment. And I think that Bill Self built this year's roster right. I do. I really still like the way he built the roster. I think he took a note from TJ Altenberger's plan in how he built it, and he actually went and got role players. Like Melvin Council was a great Robin. He was a Robin who knew he was a Robin. I think Trey White had really great moments as 3-and-D. I think some of the bench guys maybe struggled a little bit at points, but Elmarko Jackson certainly had his moments. My point is this was almost all Darren Peterson's fault. Whether fair or not, he became the biggest distraction, the biggest story in college basketball. And we could get a tell-all in 25 years of everything that Peterson went through, and we could find out that all of it was true, and maybe he was playing through more than we were let on, or we could find out that it's false. Regardless of what it is, it was a distraction, and it ruined this team. Bill Self has been dealing with 5-star recruits that are getting paid, allegedly, for a lot longer than the NIL era. I think this Darren Peterson thing was a one-off saga, and I think Bill has learned how to build a roster in the transfer portal, and I want to see him do it one more time. Don't go out like this, Bill, please. That's my freedom tire who needs to fix.
Maybe Bill's just not a good judge of character. Maybe he needs to look at that.
Please.
Just saying.
I mean, you don't
have all
win.
the talent in the world and you pay him millions of dollars. You think that character is going to get any better?
I mean, I'm still not completely sold that we've been told the truth on the Darren Peterson thing. In fact, I'm 0% sold that we've been told the truth. And I don't know if he's a bad dude. I really don't. I don't know if he's a bad teammate. I think he might have bad people in his ear. I think he might legitimately have like a really bad cramping problem that was really hard to play through. I don't mind believing the kid. Do I believe him? I don't know. But I'm open to the idea of believing him. And I'm also open to the idea that Bill Self, more often than not, has gotten elite talent to play hard. That's how they won 14 straight Big 12 titles. And they've had their chain snatched by Houston. They've had their chain snatched by Arizona this year. Iowa State's been just as good, if not better than them for a few years in a row. And I really think Self closed that gap this year. I just want to see him try it one more time. I think he's found out that you can have a big NIL budget and not go and just buy the 8 best players you see. You can go and buy the 8 best fits you see for your roster. And I still think Self did that this year, and it didn't work out because their NBA lottery pick, a guy who by all accounts, based off of high school film, high school tape, high school ratings, was going to be an unbelievable player and showed flashes, didn't pan out the way he expected. And is some of that on Self? Absolutely. But who knows? This Peterson thing could have played out the exact same if he went and played for Kelvin Sampson at Houston. It could have played out the exact same if he went and played for John Shire at Duke. Because maybe it is his problem and not Bill's. That's my plea for Bill Self, to go one more year and see if he can make a deep run in the NCAA tournament.
I would laugh if he just got another Peterson next year and had to deal with it again.
Well, they are. I mean, they've got one of the top recruits coming in the country, a guy who's going to be projected to be probably the number 1 pick in the NBA draft. And they've had players like Andrew Wiggins was awesome. Tyron Stokes very well, which I don't think he's committed yet, but it sounds like by all account he's going to Kansas unless Self retires. Who knows? Maybe he's Andrew Wiggins. Maybe he's Josh Jackson. Those guys did pan out, and those guys lived up to their top billing. I just want one more year of Bill Self, selfishly.
Guess we'll see.
It got really dark in my room. We're recording this at dusk. I usually open my window and allow the natural light in my camera or my computer light to light me, so I apologize if it's really dark behind me. It looks kind of creepy.
See what happens when you start talking about Bill Self?
It's a dark conversation to think of Bill Self not coaching basketball anymore.
There you go.
Well, we can lighten up with the Iowa lottery. Woohoo! I actually got a box. I got a box from the Iowa lottery. I've got like 10 free plays. I got to go activate it at a gas station. I can become a millionaire for life. Could you imagine that? If I was a millionaire for life, I would find the next Darren Peterson. And I don't know.
Split
maybe
it with
see
me?
if. Yeah, I'd split it with you. We could.
There we go.
Maybe I'd buy some land down in West Texas, Southwest Texas.
Yeah. That'd
be awesome. I would that if I was a millionaire for life, I would definitely do that. I mean, I'd stay in Iowa, but I would definitely go off the grid for my second home. Of course, safely invest. Actually, the first thing I'd do is go to Wealth Trotter Retirement Planning and Tax. But you could go be a millionaire for life if you played the Iowa lottery. Also, secondary prizes of being a 100,000-aire for life. I don't think that's a real word, but the second prize is winning $100,000 each year for the rest of your life. That ain't a bad consolation either.
If I won millionaire for life, I don't think nobody would ever see me again. I'd be gone.
Oh, you'd do this podcast. I'd make you.
You'd have to find me first.
Yeah,
I'd be on some like 200,000 acre ranch. I'd be out of here. I'm gone. You might not ever see me again.
Texas Tech. Not a great showing out of them. I mean, love Grant McCasland. His team did not have it defensively against Alabama. Their season ends in the round of 32, but it also ended with JT Toppin on the bench, which sucks. For me, the grade is incomplete, but I'll give them a B because I don't think you can fairly give them a great grade, but I also don't think you can fairly give them a bad grade when you lose your All-American and Big 12 Player of the Year.
Yeah, I'd probably go B or B-. I mean, watching that game against Alabama, I mean, Tech was just outmanned and outmatched. I mean, Alabama looked like the better team, certainly played like it as well, and I think it didn't help. You had Tech, they shot like 34% from the field, 16% from three, which I don't even know how that's possible in today's college basketball, but you can't shoot that poorly and get outworked like they did on the glass and beat a team like Alabama. So, even for the defense for Tech in that game, I didn't feel like was that great. But it's just unfortunate we couldn't see that team at full strength going into the final few weeks and going into the tournament, because I think if they were healthy, I think we'd probably be talking about them playing at least one more game in this tournament, if JT was healthy. So, but again, it's just kind of that what if game, which I hate playing that game. And also the other thing too, I felt really bad for them because you're without Toppin. You're in Tampa. They started like at 9:30 at night. It was like 10:30 East Coast time in Tampa. I can't imagine how many people had to took their flights already Sunday night to get out of Tampa, go back home, because the crowd there just looked absolutely pathetic. And to get blown out like that in front of dozens of people, literally, it just felt like a really sad scene there in Tampa. Just a bitter, just a bad way to end your season if you're Texas Tech. But again, without Toppin, I mean, it's just so hard to do. It's so hard to make a Sweet 16 or Elite 8 without a guy like that.
Incomplete is the fair way to put it. And it wasn't just Toppin. They were not healthy to start the year either. They were missing 3 rotation guys through the middle of January. Just a bad luck year for Grant McCasland. I would be sick if I was a Tech fan. Absolutely sick. Because Christian Anderson's off to the NBA. JT Toppin's going to be off to the NBA most likely. Or Toppin's a senior.
Yeah.
So he's done. Anderson's going to go be a first-round pick. You had those two. You had 3-and-D guys. You had super lengthy big men off the bench. That was a team that absolutely could have made a Final Four. And unfortunately, that's part of college basketball. You need luck sometimes. They had bad luck this year. I still think McCasland is one of the best coaches in the country, and he'll get it on track. But it's just a solid B for me this year with the Texas Tech Red Raiders.
He'll have his work cut out for him next year, that's for sure.
BYU.
Ugh.
I give them a C-. But I give AJ DeBanza an A+. Actually, I give him a... What am I going to give him? I'm going to give AJ DeBanza my Beast of the Week.
Beast of the Week.
Caught you off guard, didn't I? Monster the
coming.
Beast Hard Seltzer brings you our Beast of the Week. AJ DeBanza, one of the all-time one-year college basketball players, and trust me, I'm going to rip into BYU here in a second because they wasted him. A lot of it was bad luck. Richie Saunders tears his ACL. You can't blame him for that. Very similar to JT Toppin. But there was something even with Saunders that wasn't right about this team. And I'm going to be honest, I didn't really like how their roster is built. And sometimes that happens when you spend a lot of money on one player. But that was money well spent. AJ Dybantsa is going to have a long NBA career. He's going to be wearing that BYU logo. He's going to be coming back to the Marriott Center. It was still a good investment to get AJ Dybantsa, even though it didn't work out. This team, I thought coming into the season, had a very good chance to win the Big 12. I thought they had a very good chance to make a Final Four. And Dybantsa even exceeded my expectations. He gets an A+. And that's the bummer, I think, for me with BYU, is you got an A+ season from a once-in-a-lifetime. BYU will never have a player as good as him again. They're going to have more great players. They're going to have more All-Americans. They're not going to have another AJ Dybantsa. And I feel like this was wasted by a fairly poor constructed roster. Rob Wright, all the talent in the world. I don't love his IQ at the end of those games, especially the game against Texas. Kennard Davis, fine player. Can he really be your fourth option and make a Final Four? I don't know. Keba Keita, I like him. It can kind of disappear in moments. The bench, don't love it. I'm kind of disappointed in how BYU season turned out. And I think Kevin Young has a lot of, I'm not going to say a lot of pressure, but I think he's got some pressure on him to build a really good roster in year 3 because he's got an uphill climb to replace Saunders, to replace Dybantsa. They've got the resources. Can he put it together and build a team that complements each other? Because I don't really think he had it this year.
Yeah, I'm going to make BYU the focus of my Freedom Tire who needs a fix. And I gave them a C- as well. Just a really disappointing finish to, quite frankly, a disappointing season in Provo. I think BYU just kind of ran into the same problem against Texas that they had been running to for the last few weeks of the season, which is nobody outside of AJ Dybantsa and Robert Wright. And to be honest, I mean, neither one of them shot the ball that great in that game against Texas. I believe they combined for, 50 of BYU's 71 points, but they didn't even shoot that well for me. And Jake, me and you had as many points as the BYU bench did the other night because they put up a big fat 0 on the board. So there's been a ton of talk about asking if paying Dybantsa was worth all that money. And it's a fair question. But at the same time, I don't think you expect to lose Richie Saunders a few weeks before the tournament. Knowing what we know now, I'd probably say it wasn't worth it. But at the same time, if Saunders is playing in that game against Texas, I think BYU would have made it past the Longhorns. We'd probably be having a completely different conversation. But when it all boils down, BYU finished 10th in the Big 12 and got bounced in the first round in the tournament. Nobody would say that's a good year for BYU at all. So that's why I'm going to give them a C-.
Good take. I think we're in agreement on that one. TCU, they go out, they give Duke a fight. They didn't have enough to outlast Duke. And I think Duke struggling with Siena hurt TCU's cause. They weren't going to sleepwalk past TCU, but they give them all they could handle. I'll give TCU a B-. I feel like B- is about as average as it gets. This to me felt like an average TCU season. Super high highs, super low lows. You couldn't really trust them. But you know that Jamie Dixon is going to make a pretty good situation out of the season, and that's what he ended up doing. They lost their first game of the year to New Orleans and responded with some big wins over Florida, Wisconsin, gave Michigan all they could handle, beat Iowa State. A good year, not a great year, and it seems to be kind of the purgatory that TCU basketball's in.
I gave him a B. After winning that thrill against Ohio State, I didn't know how much TCU had left in them against Duke, but they put up quite the fight in that first half. They made me a believer. And then, of course, the second half happened, and they just got ran out of the gym. But I'd give him a B. I think we should probably give some credit to Jamie Dixon because I don't think he's a coach that probably gets talked about a whole lot. But 3 of the last 5 years, the Frogs have won at least one game in the tournament. They've made the tournament 4 out of the last 5 seasons. We're still waiting on them to take that next step. But at the same time, we probably shouldn't overlook what they've been able to accomplish in Fort Worth either. So I'm going to give them a B. But again, they're going to have to start making some more waves making more noise in the tournament. Like they need like a Sweet 16 appearance or just something to kind of build that resume up and kind of get that program going to even further heights, because it's good, it's consistent, they're getting there. They just got to start winning games once they're there.
Yeah, this year felt similar to a couple of years back when they gave Arizona all they could handle in the round of 32 and couldn't get over the hump. Feels similar to that. They're going to be hungry next year. I think Dixon will have resources. I like Dixon as a coach. I still don't have faith in him to put together a true top of the Big 12 contender. I have all the faith in them to be maybe the best good team. Is that fair? Like if you enter this season thinking Arizona, Houston, Iowa State, BYU, Kansas, Tech, we're going to be the great teams. I think TCU absolutely was the king of the next tier.
Yeah.
But I don't have a ton of faith in them getting to the next tier, which is okay. It's hard to get into that tier, especially in the Big 12. And speaking of getting into a tier, the UCF Knights, Derek Duke's beloved UCF Knights, I'm giving them an A. They had a tiny budget. They had no shot of making the NCAA tournament. They were a basement dweller. They were in the same conversation as Utah, blah, 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 blah. Johnny Dawkins got a lot out of his squad, and they certainly did not have a great end of the season, like a bad end of the season. But, man, he had no resources and got that team to the NCAA tournament when I didn't expect it at all. Zero chance that I thought that would happen before the season. So I'm giving UCF an A. Would have been an A+ if they continued on their trajectory that they were in, like in early February after they beat Tech. But you can't be too picky. I'm giving UCF an A despite their early exit in the NCAA tournament.
I put B+ just because of the way they finished the regular season. At one point, they were like 9-6 in the Big 12. I thought they had a chance to get 11 wins in this conference, and then they ended up losing like their last 3. They finished 9-9 in the Big 12. Not really the way you want to go out. Then, they won a game in Kansas City, but then got bounced. I was impressed by the way they played against UCLA. I thought it was a lot closer than what I thought it was going to be. But for me, you limped into the big dance. You lose your final 3 games of the regular season. You got your ass kicked by Arizona and Kansas City before you hit UCLA. So, and I'll give them credit to their, they probably played their best basketball game in probably close to a damn month against UCLA. But in that game, it just felt like every time UCF just made a run, UCLA just had an answer for it. So also they turned it over like 20 times in that game. You can't do that in March. You can't win games like that against top tier competition. But for making the tournament and getting there, I'm going to give them a B+. Would have been an A for me if they would have ended on a higher note.
Fair enough. I think we're right around on the same page. All right, let's close out 2 teams that definitely missed the tournament, and we're not going to give them their letter grades right now, but neither of them would be great grades as Cincinnati moves on from Wes Miller. And they hired Jared Calhoun from Utah State, and that brings me into my carbless refreshing take of the week. I could really go for a carbless when I'm out in Chicago. I hope they sell them. I know carbless is a Wisconsin company, and I know that Chicago is essentially southern Wisconsin, so hopefully they've got it everywhere in stock. What's that face?
I've never heard that in my life.
Or Wisconsin is just North Chicago. Either way, they're one and the same thing. So hopefully they've got carbless there. It's finally getting warm out. It'd be a great drink to have on a nice balmy 80-degree day. My refreshing take is Cincinnati's hire. The Bearcats are back. They're coming back. March 23rd, said it here first. Cincinnati basketball will be back, and it's going to be sooner than most people think. This is the hire of the offseason so far. We'll see what a potential North Carolina opening or a potential Kansas or potential Kentucky opening brings. But so far, of all of the teams that have hired new coaches, Jared Calhoun is without a doubt the biggest home run hire. I think he was the best coach in this cycle. We'll see what what big names could potentially hop to bigger jobs, but of the mid-major to high-major jobs, other than John Schertz, who's staying at St. Louis, Jared Calhoun was absolutely the next best thing, and Cincinnati getting him over K-State, who wanted him, is a massive win, and I think Cincinnati basketball is going to be back maybe next year. Like I like this hire so much. I think that highly of Utah State and what Calhoun was able to do there.
Yeah, they're fresh off back-to-back tournament appearances with Utah State there,
and they were underseeded this year. They should have been a 6th seed. They got screwed having to play Arizona.
That's true. They swept the Mountain West 2 years in a row. Also, he's a Cincinnati alum, so it just kind of made sense for them to make this hire. I thought it was a great hire. Out of all the hires in the conference so far, I think this one probably made the most sense to me and was probably the best hire, or maybe the best hire in college basketball up to this point. So we'll see how it plays out, but I really do like this for Cincinnati. That's a program that it's got the history. It just needs a little juice, and I think Calhoun could be the guy that gives it that juice it needs.
Yeah, I think this league will be better if Cincinnati's good. And they've been good. I truly think they've been a good team under Wes Miller each and every year. They just underachieved every single time. Like I thought this year
they didn't make the tournament under Wes Miller at all.
I know, but I still thought their roster was good every year. And that's the difference between a good team and a well put together team, I suppose. They were a well put together team, but never put it all together. I think Calhoun's the guy to do that. I think they've got more resources than you'd think. And they've got a pretty passionate and hungry fan base. I'm excited to see how Calhoun can do at Cincinnati. Whereas Arizona State, they make this hire not out of left field. It had been talked about for a few weeks now, but they hire Randy Bennett, who had been at St. Mary's for 25 years. Jesus. And he's going back home. He's from Phoenix. He's taken over the Arizona State job. I don't know how they could have done any better than getting Bennett. I was among the belief of, you probably have to move on from Hurley, but who are you going to get that's better than Hurley when you consider their resources, them having to compete with Arizona? And honestly, Randy Bennett, a guy who has continuously made the tournament at St. Mary's, maybe hasn't overachieved a ton in his time in the NCAA tournament, but has absolutely proven to be able to put together a roster, put together a team that can compete with Gonzaga. I think this is a home run for Arizona State, and it's maybe the only avenue they have to becoming a relevant Big 12 program. Bennett, in the twilight of his career, absolutely has the ability to get ASU back to the NCAA tournament.
Well, speaking of the NCAA tournament, he's made it 12 times in the last 25 years at St. Mary's. 4 conference titles. I think he's been to 5 straight NCAA tournaments there at St. Mary's. I always said this, if Arizona State, they're probably looking for a guy that can do more with less. I thought this was a great hire for that.
Yeah,
exactly.
That's what you have to do with that job.
Exactly. So I thought Randy Bennett was an excellent hire. If they're not going to put and pump a ton of money into basketball and you're just going to get the most out of your roster or your budget, can't complain about Randy Bennett at all. He's done it at St. Mary's. He's a proven coach, a veteran head coach. He knows what he's doing. Is he going to be there 10 years from now? Probably not. But at least he can kind of guide that program in the right direction before you make your next hire.
It's not a perfect comparison because Arizona State was in the NCAA tournament a few years ago. But he could be their Lance Leipold for Kansas football. Leipold's an older guy. He's not going to be at Kansas in a decade. He's probably not going to be at another job either. He's probably going to retire Kansas Jayhawk. Randy Bennett, I assume, will retire an Arizona State Sun Devil. And what I like about this hire is, reading between the lines, Bennett's had a lot of opportunities to go up a level. A lot. And he's turned down a lot of them. Why would he choose Arizona State unless he was promised something? Did they have a booster come through and promise so-and-so resources to their roster? Because if I'm Bennett, I don't see the benefit in jumping up to this job unless you have that. And knowing what he's accomplished, I don't think he would just leave this job for the sake of getting a Power 5 job when he's had plenty of opportunities to do it. So maybe Arizona State is going to be more well-resourced than we thought, and this very well could end up being a great hire for Arizona State moving into this new era.
Well, like you mentioned, he's from Phoenix. This is probably his chance to kind of ride off into the sunset, go back home. It was probably just the right time, the right opportunity for him to make the move as well.
And probably a pretty low-pressure job.
Yeah, that too.
I would imagine. That's a fan base that'll be happy if you can get to the NCAA tournament every other year.
Oh, yeah. Without a doubt.
Awesome. Well, good show. That's all I got.
Have fun in Chicago.
Is that all you have?
That's all I got.
Nothing else you want to add? Aiden, anything you got to add, Aiden? Been awfully quiet over there in the kitchen.
Nope. All good.
Well spoken, as always, Aiden
I'd
Wyatt.
like to know what's for dinner.
What's for dinner, Aiden?
Skitty.
Sounds so
Spaghetti.
good.
Yeah.
I'll be over. I'll see you in 25 minutes.
I like to dump a bunch of hot sauce on my spaghetti. Is that weird?
Shut up. This has been Bigger Than 12 here in the Channel Seed Studios. We'll see you next week.
Woohoo!